Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be going through my spring TBR. I actually wasn't planning on making a spring TBR, but I was seeing a lot of people posting them, so I was feeling a little bit of FOMO, and I decided I would give it a try. Now, I did a spring recommendation video based off of book covers, because when it comes to spring, there's not really a specific genre that I'm more drawn to. So I read a little bit of everything, which is why I was a little iffy on if I wanted to do a TBR, but I did find 10 books that I'm hoping to get to in the next few months. I have 5 books that I physically own, and then 5 books that I would get through either Libby or my library. I'm going to try to keep the synopsis of these books relatively short. 1, because we have 10 books to get through, and 2, because I'm always a little iffy on a book's synopsis before I actually read it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the first book I'm hoping to get to. Alright, so the first physical book on this list is The Death of Vivek OG by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a book that is on my 20 books to read in 2023. Akwaeke Emezi is also an author that I've been meaning to try for quite a while. I have heard wonderful things about their writing, and want to see if they're an author that I will fall in love with. In this book, we are following Vivek and their family. It kind of sounds, based off the synopsis, that we're going to be following 2 different timelines. And one, we're going to be following Vivek as they are experiencing some crisis within their life. They seem to be a little bit different than the other people around them, and they also seem to suffer from blackouts as well, and these things seem to be escalating. In the other timeline, we are following their family after Vivek's death. When it comes to literary fiction, I do enjoy books that focus on family, that focus on grief, that are going to focus on very complex emotions, and I have a feeling that that is what I'm going to get from this book. I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about it. It's super short. It's a book of the month book, so the text is going to be huge, as well as the book being physically short. So it really shouldn't take me that long to read, and it's a little embarrassing that I haven't gotten to it yet. The next book is a book that I would receive from the library. Unfortunately, my library doesn't have the audiobook for this one yet, but they do have a physical copy, and that is The World Gives Way by Marissa Levine. Not sure how to say their last name, but this is a sci-fi story that I recently heard about from Riley Marie, and I believe she gave it 5 stars and was really hyping it up. For a while, I was definitely starting my sci-fi era, but I haven't been picking it up as much, but I definitely want to start doing that again, and the synopsis really piqued my interest. It seems that we are following a woman who is trying to run away from her position in life. Her position could very much be compared to that of slavery. In this world, the humans have escaped Earth. So all the rich people got on some ships and were going to blast off to another planet, but they realized that because this journey would take so long, that they would need people to care for the ship. And so they allowed some of the pavos to get on, and they have been reproducing over the generations, I'm assuming, and we are now following one of their descendants as she decides that this is no longer a life that she wants to live. This ship that they are on, that they're traveling through space in, seems to have multiple ecosystems, you know, cities, jungles, and the like, and we get to follow her as she is running through these different ecosystems, as well as another character who is chasing her. So I think that sounds like it would be a very exciting story. I do enjoy reading about like man-built planets, you could almost call them. I always find that that's a very interesting concept, so I'm definitely interested in checking out this book. Book number 3 is another physical book, and that is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I selected this book and then was a little unsure if I should put it on this list. This book is a classic, and I do have a punishment prompt for my game that requires me to read a classic, so I was kind of saving this book for that punishment prompt, and I just recently used it, so I'm not sure if that punishment prompt will come up again in the next few months. But you know, either way, I want to put it on this list. I may read it even if that punishment prompt doesn't come up, just because this is a story that's been on my TBR for a very long time. I have to admit, I don't know too much about it. It just seems to be one of those classic queer stories that everyone kind of knows. It seems to take place in the 1950s. Other than that, I have literally no idea. I'm assuming it's not a queer joy story. It's probably gonna be, you know, maybe a little bit depressing as classic queer stories seem to unfortunately often be. But, you know, I want to check out this author and see if he is an author whose other works I want to check out. Next, we have another audiobook that I want to check out, and it's called This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story. I hope I said that right. And this is by Case and Calendar. I have read 2 of this author's other books, Felix Ever After and King and the Dragonflies, and I've really enjoyed both of them. So I want to go ahead and check out this book by them as well. This book seems to have a slightly lower rating. It's less than a 3.5 average on Goodreads, but I do think that the story sounds rather sweet. We are following a boy who doesn't really believe in love outside of fiction. His father passed away and left his mother very heartbroken and alone, and so he has kind of been avoiding love to avoid that heartbreak himself. His ex-girlfriend and now best friend wants to show him that love is real outside of his screenplays, and that becomes a lot easier when his childhood best friend moves back to town. So I know I really enjoy this author's writing, so I'm very excited to give this book a try, and hopefully I like it more than a lot of people seem to. Book number 5 is also from an author that I have read and enjoyed in the past, and that is Recursion by Blake Crouch. I read Dark Matter last year and gave it 5 stars, I believe, and I believe it even made it onto my top books of the year. Either that or it was at least a honorable mention. In this book, we are following people that seem to have memories that they never actually experienced, and this is causing them to kind of, I think, lose their minds a little and maybe even commit suicide because of it. I don't know too much more about this book. I don't want any sort of spoilers going into it. It's relatively short. I know Blake Crouch's books have some really great twists and turns and are very fast paced. I do have his other book, Upgrade, on my shelves, and I'm hoping to read it this year, but I do want to give a little bit of space in between the 2 books just because he, I think, found a niche that he works well in, and so I'm assuming there's going to be at least similar vibes to the book, so I want to give a few months in between. So I'd like to read this book in the first half of this year so I can get to Upgrade in the second half. Alright, for book number 6, my next audiobook, I have Well That Was Unexpected by Jessie Santanto. This is actually an author that I've read from before, Dial 8 from Aunties, and I had a lot of fun with that duology, so I'm really excited to check out some more of her work. Now, I believe that this book is YA and not adult, but we're following 2 characters. For our female character, her mother, I think, finds her in a compromising position and decides that they need to take a trip to her native Indonesian family home. And there she finds out that her mother has been talking to a man pretending to be her, and that man has been pretending to be his son, and that they are trying to hook the two children up. So she and this other boy are kind of forced together, and they're obviously not at all happy about the situation because it's weird. But I guess as they spend time together, they start to develop feelings for each other. I'm hoping that this book has some of the humor that I experienced in her first books. I also am very excited that this book takes place in Indonesia. It's always fun to read a book that takes place outside of the US, and overall it just sounds like a really sweet story. Book number 7, we have The Push by Ashley Audren. This is a book that I've been meaning to get to for a while. I have a vlog idea for it, but I just haven't quite been in the mood to read it, but I have been eyeballing it a little bit more than usual, so I am hoping to pick it up in the next 2 to 3 months. This book deals with a mother who, after giving birth, is having trouble connecting with her daughter. I'm pretty sure it's a daughter, and is experiencing some paranoia around her child, and seems that her husband is just not understanding where she's coming from with any of this. So it's a bit of a thriller situation. I've heard excellent things about the story and its discussion of motherhood, so I'm really interested to dive in and see if I love it as much as so many people have. I think I saw quite a few people put this on their best of 2022 list, and hopefully it makes it onto my best of 2023 list. Next, we have Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. I recently read one of her other books, Once Upon a K-Prom, and just had a wonderful time with that story. So I'm even more excited than I was before to dive into this book. This is actually another book that's on my list of 20 books to read in 2023. This is a YA fantasy story where we are following a young girl who is a Gumiho, I hope I'm saying that correct, and she has this bead, I believe, that allows her to eat men's souls or something along those lines, and she ends up losing that, and stumbles across a young man and doesn't eat him and develops a relationship with him or something. I have to admit, I don't know much else of what's happening in this book, but I did hear that it has some kind of K-drama vibes to it, and I'm really intrigued by the mythology aspect of it, and I know that I enjoy Kat Cho's writing, so I am intrigued to get into this well-beloved duology. For my last physical book, I'm taking a bit of a risk because I'm going with a book that's formatted in a way that I usually don't enjoy or haven't had the best of luck with, but who knows, I keep trying, and maybe one day I'll find one I really love. And this is called The Toughest Indian in the World by Sherman Alexie. I have another book by this author, and I've never read from him before, so I really wanted to give one of his works a try to see if I should be keeping his work on my shelf. This is written by an Indigenous author, and it is a short story collection, which I did not know when I initially picked this book up for this video, because there's no synopsis on the back, so I had to look it up. So pretty much it seems to be a compilation of stories about your everyday Indian, and it just follows them as they live their life in different ways, and it seems that it focuses more on Indians that are thriving, because a lot of times you read about the struggle of Indigenous people within the US, but this seems to focus more on those that have overcome that struggle and are doing quite well in their life. So that might be a good change in pace when it comes to stories about Indigenous people. This author seems to be relatively well respected as far as Indigenous authors go, so I'm definitely intrigued to see if I enjoy his work. And for the last book on this spring at TBR, I honestly chose this because the cover was giving spring vibes, and that is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. I believe this is a YA story, and we are following a girl who accidentally kills her mother after brewing her some poisonous tea, I believe. And one day the kingdom is holding a competition for traditional tea ceremonies, and she decides to apply for that. And I think there's a lot of political intrigue and drama within this competition, and she also meets up with a mysterious and handsome boy, of course. So I think I saw this book floating around for a while, but I can't really remember what people were saying about it. And it has a decent rating on Goodreads. It is a 3.9, so not terrible, but not awesome. But you know, I am intrigued by the idea of reading a book that revolves around tea ceremonies. So I am going to give the audiobook a try, and hopefully I enjoy it. All right, guys, so there are the 10 books that I am hoping to read in the month of spring. We'll see how well I do with that. Let me know down below what books you're hoping to pick up in the next few months for this lovely spring season. And as always, thank you for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!